Luke chapter number 6, verse 22 says, "Blessed are you when men shall hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company, and shall reproach you and cast out your name as evil for the Son of Man's sake." How many of you guys feel blessed, honestly, when men hate us? When people don't want nothing to do with you, when they separate us from their company, when they reproach us, when they sit around and talk about us and say mean and evil things about us behind their backs, thinking that it's never going to get back to us. How many of you guys have experienced that? Well, I certainly have, and you probably have too. And but the Bible says that when we experience that, we're blessed. Blessed are you when men hate you, and when they shall separate you from their company, when they shall reproach you, when they cast your name out as evil for the Son of Man's sake. Look what the Bible tells us to do when we come across that. It says in verse 23, "Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, for behold, your reward is great in heaven." This is a verse that more often than not, we don't really consider the implications of this verse in real life. And what I mean by that is in real life, down here where we live, where the rubber meets the road, we don't oftentimes consider that we're blessed by this. I mean, imagine this, picture this. Let's just say you had, I don't know, friends, co-workers, family members, whatever the case may be, and they often kept you out of their, close associations, so to speak. Like, for example, maybe they'll never come to your house to eat with you. They never, they'll never come and visit you. Perhaps they get together and they go out and you're never invited. They go on maybe, if they're wealthy people, they'll likely go on expensive vacations together, and they never invite you. And a lot of times when things like that happens to us, it can cause a lot of anger. It can cause some bitterness, some resentment, some jealousy, whatever the case may be. And oftentimes we feel anything in those moments but blessed. No one wants to feel like they're outcasted, they're not invited, they're not good enough to participate in whatever the case may be. I mean, maybe you have family members and they get together and they go on vacation, you're not invited. Or maybe, they all get together and they go out to the people at your office go out to eat, go out to a bar, to a club or something like that, and you're not invited. And if we're not careful, those things can lead to some pretty negative emotions, a lot of anger, a lot of bitterness and resentment. But the Bible says, "Blessed are you when men do this to you." Why? Well, something we need to consider is that maybe the reason why those people treat you like that is because it's God's way of protecting you. Maybe the reason why those family members don't invite you on the expensive vacations, maybe the reason why co-workers don't invite you out to hang out with them in their get-togethers. Maybe those things were not done to hurt you, but they are God's provision in our life in order to protect us. Sit back and look at the character. Sit back and look at the life of those men, women, whoever they may be, that treat you like that. You see, if there are characteristics in their life that are unbecoming of a believer, why would your Father want you to be at home around those people? Why would your Father want you to be at home around those people? A lot of times, poor family members are looked upon as outcast among, especially the wealthier, richer people within their family. And you get this idea like, well, they look down on me, they think they're better than me because, of that. And it could just very well be that God's trying to protect you so that you don't adopt. You see, you don't adopt their ways of thinking, their ways of doing things. You don't adopt those characteristics of those people. You see, the more we're around people, the more we adopt their character, the more influence that people have over us, the more we're around people, the more like them we become. And maybe those people who have cast you out and who have cast you aside, perhaps that's God's way of protecting you so that you don't become like them. Like, for example, let's say you were a young man and you had very wealthy parents like George Mueller's family, or and they wanted you to go to college and get a good job and make all the money you could make and be wealthy. And the more you're around them, the more they're going to influence you to do those things. And that's very well could be not God's will for you. And therefore, he lets them look down upon you. He lets them put you out of their company. And perhaps even they may have evil motives for doing it, but it shouldn't be a cause for anger, shouldn't be a cause for resentment or cause for bitterness in our life. Should be a cause for gratitude. We should be thankful that God has allowed them to view us in such a way as that they don't want our company for our well-being, so that we don't take upon ourselves the attributes of those whom the Lord is trying to protect us from. It's again, I understand it's hard when people feel rejected by certain people. I've seen it happen time and time again where a believer will work in like an office environment, and everybody in the office, they'll get together and they'll all go out for drinks, and they don't invite the believer. And the believer, even though he didn't want to drink, even though he doesn't really want to partake in that, he still feels like the outcast. He feels like they have discarded him and thrown him away. But like I said again, the Bible says, blessed are you when men put you outside their company. They don't feel comfortable around you for a reason. Perhaps it's for the very reason that God's trying to protect you. There's something about you that you're special, you're cherished by the Father. What Father? I know as a parent, I don't want my kids hanging around people that I know is going to influence them to do things that are contrary to what I'm trying to instill. And perhaps the reason God has allowed this is not because he wants you to feel hurt, not because he wants you to feel that. He wants us to develop in character and things that if we were closer to these people, we would be influenced to have just the opposite. One of the reasons why I think God keeps us away from the rich and the wealthy is because he doesn't want us to be unthankful. He doesn't want us to be covetous. I mean, I know people who, they just cannot be happy unless they're purchasing stuff. They can't buy, little children, 7, 8-year-old little children, they watch television, and every commercial, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that. They want everything they see, especially around Christmas time when they're advertising all of these toys and stuff to kids. And so many kids are like, I want. It's just, it's nothing but coveting. That's what the TV is good for children. It teaches them how to be covetous. But, it's really sad when you see grown people, they're the same way. I notice that in wealthy people all the time. They're never happy. They're never satisfied. They always got to have something. I mean, it's one thing when an 8-year-old child says, I got to have a new toy. But imagine if a guy's 50 years old, my age, and every time the TV comes on, he sees something that he doesn't have, he's got to go out and buy it. I mean, is that a characteristic of a godly man? No, it's a characteristic of a man who's not satisfied. It's characteristics of a man who's covetous. Imagine if all the money he spends on silly, frivolous little toys just to keep up with the Joneses was actually applied toward the well-being of someone in his own family. I mean, is that the characteristics that you want to have in your life? And if it's not, then you should be thankful when people like this place us outside of their company and They don't come to our homes to eat, or they don't invite us to go out to the dinner parties or on the expensive vacations and all these kind of things. You know, it's a hard lesson to learn, but it's something we truly have to be thankful for, that we have a Father that wants to develop character in us far better than the character of those whom sometimes it's the appearance that they're trying to hurt us, when the reality is God has set this up in order to help us. Something to think about. I know many of you have written to me and explained to me family situations that you have that probably are just like I described. Be thankful. Be thankful that God has allowed us. You know, my little boy, I'll share this with you. My little boy, he homeschools here. He doesn't have any younger siblings. And sometimes he gets lonely, you know. And my wife and I, we look for places for him to have friendship and things to do with other kids and all that. But we don't send him to public school, and there's a reason for that. It's because we want to raise our son in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. And we know that by sending him to a public school, he's going to be influenced by anything but the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. To him, it may seem like, because of his immaturity and because of his lack of understanding, it may seem to him like, well, if mom and dad would just allow me to do this, if mom and dad would allow me to go to public school, and I'd have a whole lot of friends. And he doesn't know that the reason that we keep him away from public school is because we're trying to instill in him and teach him some characteristics, some godly traits, some godly characteristics in his behavior, in his character, in his way of thinking, particularly when he's young and he's forming his outlook on life. We keep him away for his own good. Now, it may appear to him at the time as if he's lonely, as if this is a bad thing, but those of us who are older and more mature, we know because we've raised other children this way, that in the long term, this is far, far better. Think about a father who is so much more wise, so much more loving and caring, so much more selfless than we ever could hope to be in his dealing with us, that he too would keep us away from those who would influence us to have characteristics that are unbecoming of the elect of God. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you find yourself in that position in life, you know what? Give thanks to the Lord. Those he loves, he chastens, he protects. And sometimes God's hand of protection looks like perhaps a bad thing, when as we grow in maturity, we come to realize it's actually a much better thing. Thank you guys for watching.